What's up guys, Scipio here, and today we have a video that I was actually going to make like a good while ago. I think around a year ago, or at least coming up to around a year ago, and that video is an official review of the cheapest new production pistol on the market, the Altor 9mm. Now I put emphasis on new made pistol, as you could technically find older made used stuff at the same price if not cheaper, but as far as brand new off the shelf, never been fired guns go, these are the cheapest at around $100. I think in total, after taxes and all that, mine came out to about 108 and then some change. But yeah, these are really cheap pistols. Again, the cheapest new production one you can find on the market. So with that statement, automatically we kind of realize that we aren't going into the best of the best when it comes to firearms. We are quite literally at the bottom of the barrel. And before we get into how I feel about this pistol, after personally putting probably the most rounds through it out of anyone else on this planet, we did a lot of weird testing with this pistol in particular, as we tend to do weird stuff on this channel all the time. But anyways, I want to state that I am fully aware that this is a $100 pistol and that no sensible person probably on this planet would ever buy this thing for anything other than collection. That being said, I am still going to judge it based off the merits of it being a handgun, and specifically a handgun that can be used as a self-defense gun, as on their own website they very clearly state that the Altor is designed to be a close quarters defense weapon, as well as a farm tool, which, side note, I don't really know exactly what they mean by farm tool, but I'm going to assume it has something to do with like putting down cattle. I guess if I'm wrong in that regard, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But anyways, now that we've established how we're going to do this review of the Altor pistol, let's first go into the pistol a little bit, as it's been a minute or two since we did that on this channel, and a lot of you guys probably aren't as in tune with just how odd this thing is to operate. I know buying it myself, I was actually thrown for a little bit of a loop when I first started to go shoot it. Alright, so first off, we'll go into the safety. This gun actually has two safeties. It's got a button safety right here, which when engaged does not let you pull the trigger back. And then up here you could see a barrel position safety. So the reason for this is when it's on fire, and the firing pin will actually be against the primer. This is simply to keep it off of the primer until you're ready to fire. Now the way you would operate this, assuming you had to draw this from the holster or whatever, or just shooting it in general, is you would disengage this safety, put it into the firing position, and this is the part that gets really weird about this pistol and is really the Achilles heel of it. You have to make sure your hand is below that knob right there, and you have to slowly just pull it back until it basically just releases and fires. That's essentially the really weird way that this pistol operates. And then to load it, you kind of flip it over a little bit, but give it some give, and then take a cartridge, and you will notice the firing pin sticks out in the fire position. Load your round, place the barrel on, and then if you were going to leave this in a holster, you would put it on safe. If you're going to fire, you just go ahead and fire it. You will see it labels top for where the top of the barrel sits, because the orientation matters. And they also labeled the caliber. There's actually a 9mm and a 380 caliber barrel. Now when it comes to cleaning this, you can take this apart like this extensively. There's only like 6 parts of this thing. You just remove this pin, everything slides out. Realistically, you would never, I'm going to say you flat out never need to do that. Number one, you're probably not going to shoot this thing that much, but most of the cleaning, though, is done like this. Like that's well enough to clean. So I will say there is a more extended disassembly of taking out all the parts, but realistically, that's the disassembly that most of us are going to be doing with this pistol. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the official review of the Altor 9mm pistol. When it comes to build quality, this is actually a fairly nice pistol. They use all stainless steel for the parts, and the barrel itself is fairly beefy, which I don't know if this was their intent, but this certainly helps with prolonged firing of the pistol. As well, guns tend to get hot while shooting, and you do need to remove the barrel after each shot. Having a little more material just to keep it cooled down so you can continue firing. Again, I don't know if that was their intent on having a really beefy barrel, but it definitely is a plus. Now, the pistol is frequently claimed to be indestructible, and honestly, I can see it. I mean, yeah, it's $100, but I mean, $100 going into a fairly simple pistol, as it is, will at least give you some quality parts. And honestly, it's a very simple pistol, so there isn't much to break in the first place. Now, one thing that I will add that I have a gripe with is the design of the trigger itself. I really don't see why they couldn't have made, like, a cutout somewhere in here that you could just lock it into place on either side and then, you know, go to press it in with your finger or thumb or whatever to actually fire. I don't know why we have to do that. It doesn't seem like it would be expensive to really do what I just mentioned. I mean, it kind of sounds weird to be complaining about that aspect, but in my opinion, that really destroys the pistol. Like, it is absolutely horrible to shoot because of this trigger that they have right here. One big issue you'll actually see people having with this pistol is light strikes, and it's the result of this trigger not being pulled all the way back. This is something that may sound difficult to do, and funny enough, when I actually picked this pistol up from Sportsman, the guy giving me the paperwork and all that specifically mentioned that a lot of people would end up bringing these back because they actually just thought the gun was broke, when in reality they weren't pulling the trigger back far enough. And I initially thought, well, surely that's something difficult to do. I mean, how hard is it to pull a trigger? Well, wouldn't you know, when I go to shoot this thing for the first time, I actually was having an issue getting light strikes. And again, this is like on the bench shooting. This isn't like, you know, the totally real self-defense scenario of pulling this out and under stress and doing all that. Like, it actually is pretty easy to light strike if you're not paying attention when you're shooting this thing. Which leads me to my next and most important part of this review. How does this thing perform, and is there any actual use for this pistol other than just collecting? So in total, I've probably put around 300 rounds of 9mm and probably around 150 rounds of 380 through this thing. Honestly, I'm going to contact Guinness World Records because I certainly have to hold the title of guy that shot the most ammo through an Altor pistol. I mean, this is definitely a gun that is, as you'll see with my complaints later, is not a gun that's going to be shot often. But with that, I can 100% say that this pistol serves no other purpose other than for collectors to say they own the cheapest pistol on the market. Like, there's a phrase saying, better a gun than no gun, and this pistol's existence officially makes that phrase untrue. Like, I'm not even like kidding when I say that. I would genuinely rather pick a rock off the ground, like, to use to defend myself than I would one of these. Which, again, I mean, I know no one's ever going to carry this for self-defense, but on their website it does say self-defense pistol. I would genuinely take the Caveman Special over this thing. And as mentioned, Altor does list this weapon as being a close quarters fighting weapon. Honestly, the prospect of having to use this thing within 9 yards, like they claim it is for, is utterly terrifying. But being at a distance and having to use this thing would present its own issues. Sure, we do have sights on this thing, but the way this grip is set up, where you have like nowhere to grab the gun, at least in 9mm, it feels like it's gonna fly out of your hand when you shoot it. With the best way I've personally found being to hold your thumb over the top like this, which keeps it from flying out of your hand, but also means that you can no longer use the sights. Meaning you have to more rely on just pointing. Now, I didn't really have much difficulty, all things considered, actually hitting a smaller than man-sized target at around 11 yards, but double that distance, and the fact that I've only got one shot of 9 means that we are definitely going to have some problems. Couple this with the design of the barrel itself. So now, you guys have likely noticed that we got a bunch of keyholing here on this target. That is due to the fact that the barrel is not properly rifled for 9mm. Now, to Altor's defense, this is acknowledged on their site. The pistol is essentially only rifled due to laws prohibiting a smoothbore gun under 18 inches. And as such, it uses 4 microgroups just to not have to go through the whole tax stamp route to get the gun. Honestly, I think it is kind of cool to think that they would have made these things just flat out smoothbore if they could have, but as mentioned, coupled with the awkward handling of the gun, this really adds up when it comes to shooting at a distance. Which again, to Altor's credit, they solely intended for the gun to be a close quarters fighting gun, which I think is kind of goofy, having to draw, press this button, rotate the barrel to the fire position, aim, and then fire. And doing that all while under stress. I mean, honestly, if someone's coming at me from within 9 yards, I think I would be more effective using my fists. Again, I'm not even kidding when I say that. Having to do that under stress would you'd have to be pretty darn trained to get it done right. I'll just say that. Now, plenty of gimmick guns can still be fun range toys. This, however, is kind of dependent with the Altor. The 380 in this thing is very pleasant to shoot, as one would figure from such a small cartridge. I mean, when you take into consideration all I've said about the gun, it is actually kind of fun to set a target out at, like, say, 25 yards and just do some long-distance plinking. Now, however, when it comes to 9mm, that is a completely different story. As part of my test on this thing, I did one where I was seeing if there was a certain point that the barrel would become too hot to remove. As you know, gun barrels tend to get hot with prolonged shooting, and not being able to remove the barrel on this thing due to it being too hot would mean that you have to stop shooting. I ended up shooting 94 rounds in one sitting, and part of my hand was like legit numb and shaking. The gun is absolutely horrible to shoot in 9mm. Like, it is honestly impressive just how bad the recoil is. And of course, we have to have our thumb over the top, as simply holding it like this just feels like it's gonna fly out of your hand. I don't know why this grip is so utterly small. I mean, I don't have big, massive hands, and I find myself having, when I was shooting it, having an issue just properly gripping it. I mean, I don't think it would have costed that much to just extend it a little bit. But anyways, I think these are always sold with the 9mm barrel, but really they ought to be sold with the 380 barrels. The 9 is just a little too much for this pistol. Honestly, I never thought I would complain about a 9mm recoil, but here we are. I'm sure Mr. Macho Man is already halfway through a paragraph in the comments on how he regularly shoots his 4570 Derringer, and I'm just a wimp for what I said about 9mm. But anyways, I think that is going to do it for this review in a nutshell. So in total, I think it is a neat gun to collect, and with the 380 barrel, you could say it's kind of a fun plinker. But overall, to say that you could use this gun for self-defense, which no one besides Altor would ever say that, and I doubt Altor believes it either. But you can't, this is not a self-defense gun easily, 100%, no way. Farm tool, I guess you could put down cattle with this. I would say the only purpose this thing serves, though, as part of my official review on this, is either fun range toy plinker with a 380 barrel, or just some goofy gun to collect to show your friends and be like, look at this thing. Anyways, that is going to do it for this official Scipio review of the Altor 9mm. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I personally enjoyed making it, and I will see y'all next time.